Hello, dear wanderers of the twilight hour. Welcome to a place beyond the ordinary, beyond the rush and clamour of the waking world. I'm your guide through these mystical realms, and tonight I invite you to step with me into the Whispering Woods, a sanctuary where ancient magic still flows through every root and branch, where the very air shimmers with possibility. Close your eyes and imagine the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft bubbling of mystical ingredients, and the feeling of ancient magic filling the air. This isn't just a video, it's a sensory escape. We're inviting you to experience the meticulous brewing of enchanting elixirs, designed to bring you ultimate tranquility and wonder. Let your shoulders drop, let your breathing slow and deepen. Whatever worries have followed you here, whatever tasks await you tomorrow, release them now. They cannot follow where we're going. In this sacred grove, time moves differently. Minutes stretch into eternals, and the boundary between waking and dreaming grows gossamer thin. Can you hear it? That subtle whisper carried on the breeze. It's the forest itself, welcoming you home to a place you've always known in your deepest dreams. The Whispering Woods have stood for countless centuries, untouched by the march of ages, protected by enchantments woven when the world was young. Here, the old magic still remembers itself. The path before us winds through towering oaks, whose branches intertwine overhead like the vaulted ceiling of a natural cathedral. Shafts of moonlight filter through the canopy, painting silver patterns on the moss-covered ground. Each step we take releases the earthy perfume of forest loam, that rich scent of growing things and ancient wisdom held in soil that has nurtured life for millennia. Luminescent mushrooms cluster at the base of trees, their soft blue-green glow pulsing gently like tiny heartbeats. They light our way deeper into the woods, these faithful guardians of the forest floor. If you look closely, you might notice the faint tracery of light that connects them, an underground network of communication that spans the entire forest, linking every living thing in a web of silent conversation. The air grows thicker here, heavier with magic. You can feel it on your skin like the softest silk, can taste it on your tongue like honey and starlight. This is a place where the veil between worlds grows thin, where the impossible becomes merely improbable, and dreams take on substance and form. As we venture deeper, the forest reveals more of its secrets. Flowers that bloom only in moonlight unfurl their petals, releasing fragrances that exist nowhere else in the known world. Some smell of forgotten summers, others of winter's first snow, and still others carry scents that have no name in any human language, perfumes that speak directly to the oldest parts of our minds, the parts that remember when we too lived in harmony with the wild places. Overhead, night birds call to one another in melodious voices, their songs weaving through the rustling leaves like threads of pure sound. These are not the harsh calls of common crows, but rather the liquid notes of creatures touched by enchantment. Birds who learn their songs from the stars themselves. We follow a narrow path that seems to know where it's going, winding between ancient trees whose trunks are wider than houses. The bark of these old ones is deeply furrowed, carved with symbols that might be the work of nature or might be something more deliberate. Letters in an alphabet that predates human writing. If you press your palm against the rough bark, you can feel it, a slow thrumming pulse, the heartbeat of something vast and patient and impossibly old. The path descends gently into a small valley, a hidden hollow where the forest grows even more lush and wild. Here, the trees are draped with hanging moss that glows faintly phosphorescent, creating curtains of light that sway in the gentlest breeze. The ground is carpeted with soft moss that cushions each footfall, muffling all sound until we move through the forest as silent as shadows. And there, in the heart of this enchanted hollow, we find it, the brewing station, my sanctuary and workshop, the place where nature's bounty is transformed into elixirs of wonder and healing. It's a structure that seems to have grown as much as they've been built, fashioned from living wood that still maintains its connection to root and earth. The walls are woven from willow branches, supple and strong, and the roof is thatched with reeds gathered from the banks of the moonstream that flows nearby. Windows of thin sliced crystal, naturally formed in the caves beneath the forest, allow moonlight to stream through, casting rainbow patterns across the worn wooden surfaces within. The brewing station is both workshop and shrine, a place where science and magic intertwine so completely that it becomes impossible to say where one ends and the other begins. Shelves line the walls, carved from ancient oak and polished smooth by countless years of use. Upon these shelves rest bottles and jars of every conceivable size and shape, each one containing ingredients gathered from the far corners of the whispering woods and beyond. Some bottles hold dried herbs, their leaves still green despite the passing seasons, preserved by the same magic that keeps this place safe from the corruption of time. Others contain liquids that glow softly in the darkness, essences extracted from moonbeams and captured starlight, the concentrated spirit of summer rain or the first frost of autumn. There are jars of powders ground so fine they seem more like coloured mist than the solid matter. Azure dust gathered from the wings of midnight butterflies, who shed these scales only once in their lifetime during their mating dance. Crimson powder made from rose petals that bloomed in the ruins of a forgotten castle. Flowers that grew from soil enriched by centuries of love and loss. Golden granules that are, in truth, solidified sunlight, collected on the longest day of summer when the sun's power reaches its zenith. Crystals dangle from the ceiling on silver chains, slowly rotating and catching the light, throwing tiny rainbows across every surface. These are not mere decorations but tools of the craft, each crystal attuned to a different frequency of magic, resonating with specific types of energy and helping to focus and amplify the intentions that go into every elixir. In the centre of the space stands the great workbench, its surface scarred and stained by countless experiments, blessed failures and glorious successes. The wood has absorbed so much magic over the years that it has developed properties of its own, subtly enhancing any work performed upon it, adding its own accumulated wisdom to every new creation. Upon this bench rests the equipment of the elixir maker's art. Glass vessels of every description, from the largest demijohn, capable of holding several gallons, down to the tiniest vial no bigger than a finger. Coppered alembics for distillation, their surfaces burnished to a warm glow. Mortars and pestles carved from stone that fell from the sky. Meteoric iron that brings a touch of the cosmic to earthly work. Measuring spoons fashioned from the shells of ancient turtles, blessed with the virtue of patience and longevity. But perhaps most important of all is the book that rests on a special stand beside the workbench. The Codex of Twilight Alchemy, they call it, though its true name is written in a language that predates speech itself. This tome contains the accumulated knowledge of every elixir maker who has worked in this place, going back through the mists of time to the very first practitioner who discovered that certain combinations of the forest's gifts could produce effects both wonderful and strange. The pages are not paper but something else, some material that feels like silk and looks like captured moonlight, and the writing upon them appears in different scripts depending on who reads them, always in a language the reader can understand. The book is never finished, never complete, for new pages appear as they are needed, and every successful elixir adds its recipe to the ever-growing compendium of knowledge. Tonight, the codex lies open to a page describing an elixir of particular potency and beauty, the draught of peaceful dreams. This is no common sleeping potion, no crude mixture that merely dulls the senses into oblivion. Rather, it is a carefully balanced composition designed to guide the drinker into sleep, so gentle and restful that they wake feeling as though they have been gone for weeks, having visited far countries in their dreams and returned bearing gifts of insight and renewal. The ingredients required are many and must be gathered with care and reverence, for the power of an elixir comes not just from what goes into it, but from how those ingredients are collected and combined. Every action taken in the creation of a magical elixir is itself a kind of spell, and the intention behind each gesture matters as much as the material components themselves. And so we must venture out once more into the depth of the whispering woods, for the ingredients we need cannot simply be plucked from the shelves. They must be fresh, gathered under the proper conditions, approached with respect and gratitude. The forest is generous with those who understand the sacred contract between human and nature, the give and take, that keeps the world in balance. I lift a woven basket from its hook beside the door, a container fashioned from willow, withes, and lined with soft moss to cushion whatever treasures we might place within it. From a peg on the wall, I take a small silver knife, its blade engraved with symbols of protection and thanks. This knife has never been used for any purpose except the gathering of herbs, and it is cleaned and blessed after each use, for the tools of this craft are as important as the ingredients themselves. We step out into the moonlit forest, and immediately the night wraps around us like a familiar cloak. The temperature has dropped, and there's a crispness to the air that speaks of the turning season, that liminal time between summer's warmth and autumn's chill, when the boundaries between worlds grow especially thin. Our first destination is a grove of silver birch trees that grow beside the moonstream. The water that flows here comes from a source deep in the mountains, filtering through layers of crystal and limestone, emerging pure and cold, and touched by the minerals it encountered on its long journey to the surface. The birch trees that grow along its banks are special, their bark whiter than ordinary birches, almost luminescent in the moonlight. We approach the trees with soft steps, and I place my hand against the smooth bark of the largest tree, feeling the slow pulse of sap rising and falling, the tree's life a force moving through its body. I speak to the tree in the old tongue, the language of growing things, asking permission to take some of its bark. Not a demand but a request, and I wait patiently for the answer. It comes not in words but in feeling, a sense of welcome and generosity. The tree is old and wise and understands the purpose for which its bark will be used. I use the silver knife to carefully score a small section of bark, no larger than my palm, taking only what is needed and never cutting deep enough to harm the tree's living wood beneath. The bark peels away with a satisfying sound, a soft whisper like paper being carefully separated from a paper. The bark of the silver birch is prized in elixir, making for its properties of purification and new beginnings. It contains within it the essence of fresh starts, of slates wiped clean, of winter's ending and spring's arrival. When properly prepared and added to an elixir, it helps to clear away the accumulated debris of the waking day, all the small tensions and worries that cling to us like burrs, making true rest difficult. I place the bark carefully in my basket, murmuring thanks to the tree, and we move on. The moonstream babbles beside us, its voice a constant companion, speaking in the universal language of flowing water, a sound that is the same in all times and all places, a voice that has lulled countless generations into peaceful sleep. We follow the stream until we reach a place where it widens into a small pool, the water's surface perfectly still and reflecting the moon above so perfectly that it becomes impossible to say which is the reflection and which is the real thing. Around the edges of this pool grow plants that exist nowhere else in the forest, species that require the unique combination of elements found only in this one spot. There, at the water's edge, clusters of night's breath bloom on the tall, slender stalks. The flowers are small and bell-shaped, coloured a deep purple so dark it's almost black, and they release their fragrance only at night, a scent that is cool and clean and somehow evocative of vast distances, of wind blowing across empty moors, of solitude that is not loneliness but rather a peaceful communion with the infinite. I kneel beside the plants, feeling the dampness of the moss beneath my knees, and I take a moment to simply observe them, to appreciate their quiet beauty. These flowers bloom for only a few weeks each year, appearing as the summer wanes and disappearing with the first hot frost. To gather them is a privilege, and I approach the task with proper reverence. Using my fingers rather than the knife, for these delicate blossoms must not be touched by metal, I carefully pinch the stems where they join the main stalk, taking only every third flower and leaving the rest to continue their work of beauty and seed production. Each flower I gather releases a fresh wave of that distinctive scent, and I breathe it in deeply, feeling it calm something fundamental within me. Night's breath. Flowers are valued for their ability to quiet the chattering mind, to still the endless stream of thoughts that often keeps us from sleep. When brewed into an elixir, they impart a quality of mental stillness, not the forced blankness of suppression, but rather the natural quiet that comes when the mind is at peace with itself and the world. I place the flowers carefully in my basket, arranging them so their delicate petals will not be crushed, and we continue our gathering journey. The forest path leads us upward now, climbing out of the stream valley and onto higher ground, where the trees grow taller and the underbrush thins out. Here, in the dappled moonlight, we find patches of seven-sleep moss growing on the north side of ancient oaks. This moss is distinguished by its peculiar growth pattern, forming in spirals that wind around the tree trunk in ever-widening circles. Legend says that this moss marks the sleeping places of the Fae folk, that wherever they rest, during their rare moments of slumber, this moss springs up to commemorate the spot. Whether this is true or merely a pretty story, I cannot say, but there is no denying the moss's potent soporific properties. When dried and powdered and added to an elixir in precise amounts, it carries the gift of deep dreamless sleep, the kind of profound rest that knits up the ravelled sleeve of care. I harvest the moss carefully, using the silver knife to separate it from the bark without disturbing the tree's protective covering beneath. The moss is soft and slightly damp, and it smells of deep earth and old magic, a scent that is somehow both ancient and timeless. As I work, I'm aware of being watched, not with hostility, but with curiosity. The creatures of the forest are always aware of visitors to their domain, and they observe with the wisdom of beings who have learned to read intention and character in the subtle signs that humans rarely notice. A fox sits at the edge of the clearing, her auburn coat silvered by moonlight, her intelligent eyes tracking my every movement. She is the forest's witness, ensuring that I take only what I need and do so with proper respect. I nod to her, acknowledging her presence and her role as guardian, and after a moment she dips her head in return and melts away into the undergrowth, satisfied that all is as it should be. Our basket grows heavier as we continue gathering. We find moon petal flowers growing in a clearing where the canopy opens up, allowing full moonlight to flood the forest floor. These flowers are remarkable, their petals actually absorbing and storing moonlight the way other plants store sunlight, and they glow with a soft internal luminescence that slowly fades after they are picked. They must be used within hours of gathering, or their magic dissipates, returning to the moon from whence it came. We collect dewdrops from the leaves of Lady's Mantle, each drop a perfect sphere of water that contains within it a reflection of the night sky, tiny universes held in liquid suspension. These drops must be gathered before the first rays of dawn touch them, for sunlight breaks the enchantment, and they become merely ordinary water. We find fragments of dreamstone, a type of crystal that forms only in the deepest caves, where water has filtered through layers of limestone for centuries, depositing minerals in formations of impossible delicacy and beauty. These fragments have been brought to the surface by the industrious work of badgers, whose burrows sometimes intersect with the cave systems far below. The badgers leave the crystals scattered around their set entrances, gifts from the underground to the world above. We gather silvery strands of morning glory vine, not the common garden variety, but a rare species that grows only in the oldest parts of the forest, climbing trees that have stood for centuries. This vine blooms only in the twilight, its flowers opening as the sun sets and closing as it rises, forever, chasing that liminal moment between day and night. We collect bark from the whispering willow, a tree so old that druids once gathered beneath its branches to perform their sacred rites. The bark contains within it echoes of all the prayers and blessings spoken in its presence, a residue of holy intention that adds a quality of peace and protection. to any elixir. We find clusters of star anise growing wild, the seed pods arranged in their distinctive 8-pointed star pattern, each point representing one of the 8 festivals that mark the turning wheel of the year. These seeds carry within them the essence of cyclical time, of seasons turning and returning, of the eternal dance of death and rebirth that governs all natural things. From a lightning-struck oak, we gather splinters of wood that have been transformed by the electrical discharge, their cellular structure rearranged at the molecular level by the immense energy that coursed through them. These fragments carry the power of sudden illumination, of insights that strike like lightning, and when properly prepared, they can help to clarify dreams, making their messages more vivid and easier to remember upon waking. We discover a patch of ghost mushrooms, so called because they are nearly transparent, their flesh so thin and delicate that light passes through them as through the finest parchment. These mushrooms grow only on the rotting wood of fallen trees, and they serve as bridges between life and death, drawing nutrients from decay to create new life, embodying the eternal cycle of transformation. Our basket is nearly full now, heavy with the forest's generous gifts. But there is one more ingredient we need, perhaps the most important of all, and certainly the most difficult to obtain. We must find and gather the essence of a sleeping bird's dream. This is not something that can be taken by force or stealth. It requires patience and a deep attunement to the subtle energies that flow through all living things. We must find a bird sleeping peacefully in its nest, and we must wait beside it until we can sense the moment when it enters the deepest phase of sleep, when its dreams are most vivid and real. We search among the branches until we find what we seek, a small nest cradled in the fork of a maple tree, and within it a thrush sleeps with its head tucked beneath its wing. We settle ourselves nearby, being careful to make no sound, no movement that might disturb the bird's rest. Time passes. How long, it's impossible to say, for in this place, at this hour, time has lost its usual meaning. We simply wait, breathing slowly, emptying our minds of all thought, becoming as still and patient as the trees themselves. And then, we sense it, a shift in the bird's energy, a deepening of its sleep. We can feel it as clearly as if we were experiencing it ourselves, that moment of surrender when consciousness releases its grip and the dreaming mind takes flight. From my pocket I withdraw a tiny, crystal vial, no larger than a grain of rice, and I hold it near the sleeping bird. The vial is specially prepared for this purpose, its interior coated with a substance that attracts and captures the subtle emanations that all dreaming creatures produce. We wait, perfectly still, and gradually the vial begins to glow with a soft golden light as it fills with the essence of the bird's dream. When the vial is full, I stopper it carefully with a cork so small it requires tweezers to handle, and we withdraw as silently as we came, leaving the bird to sleep on undisturbed, its dreams contributing to an elixir that will bring peaceful sleep to another. Our gathering is complete. The basket is full, containing everything we need to brew the draught of peaceful dreams. We make our way back and through the forest, following the path that only those who know the woods can find, the trail that winds between the worlds. Back in the sanctuary of the brewing station, we light candles made from beeswax harvested from hives in the oldest apple orchard in the region, trees planted so long ago that their origins have passed into legend. The candles fill the space with warm golden light and a subtle sweetness that mingles with the forest scents we've brought back with us. I lay out all our gathered ingredients on the workbench, arranging them in the order they will be used, from the first to the last. This is not merely organisational efficiency, but part of the ritual itself, a way of honouring each component and preparing myself mentally for the work ahead. The process of creating an elixir is both science and ceremony, requiring precise measurements and exact timing, while also demanding the right mental and spiritual state from the practitioner. One cannot brew with anger in the heart or worry in the mind, for those emotions will seep into the final product as surely as any physical ingredient. The elixir maker must approach the work with clarity, intention, and a profound respect for the materials and the forces being worked with. I begin by cleansing the workspace, not just physically but energetically. I burn a small bundle of dried sage, allowing the fragrant smoke to fill every corner of the room, carrying away any stagnant energy or lingering vibrations from previous work. This is a fresh beginning, a clean slate upon which we will write our liquid poem. The first vessel I select is a large glass beaker, its sides etched with symbols that focus and contain magical energy. Into this beaker, I pour water from the moon stream, water I collected earlier and stored in a crystal vessel to preserve its pristine purity. The water catches the candlelight and seems to glow from within, as if it remembers its journey through layers of crystal and limestone, as if it carries within it the memory of the mountain's heart. I place the beaker over a special flame, not ordinary fire but something called cold fire, a flame that gives off no smoke and produces heat so gentle and even that it will never scorch or boil too rapidly. This flame is created using a combination of special oils and a technique passed down through generations of elixir makers, and it burns with a steady, unwavering light that casts no shadows. As the water begins to warm, I add the first ingredient, the bark of the silver birch, carefully shredded into thin strips that will release their essence gradually and completely. I use a special tool, a small bronze grater, whose surface has been blessed and consecrated for this purpose, and I work slowly and deliberately, allowing each strip to fall into the water with a soft splash that sends tiny ripples across the surface. The bark begins to release its properties immediately. The water takes on a faint silvery sheen, and a clean fresh scent rises with the gentle steam. This is the foundation of the elixir, the base upon which all other ingredients will build, establishing the fundamental note of purification and renewal. While the bark infuses, I prepare the night's breath flowers. These must be handled with exceptional care, for their delicate petals bruise easily, and any damage will cause them to release their essence too quickly, creating an imbalance in the final product. I place each flower in a small mortar carved from alabaster, a stone known for its ability to enhance the properties of whatever it touches. Using a pestle made from polished jade, I gently press the flowers, not crushing them but rather encouraging them to release their oils and essences. The motion must be slow and rhythmic, clockwise circles that mirror the movement of the stars across the night sky. As I work, I breathe slowly and evenly, allowing my own breath to synchronize with the rhythm of the pestle, creating a harmony of action and intention. The flowers release their perfume more intensely now, filling the brewing station with their cool, distant fragrance. When they have been properly prepared, reduced to a paste of deepest purple, I add them to the warming water. The colour spreads through the liquid like ink through water, creating swirling patterns that are hypnotic to watch, fractals of purple and silver that slowly blend until the entire beaker holds a liquid of the most beautiful twilight shade. Next comes the 7 sleep moss, which must be prepared quite differently. This moss contains compounds that are released only through extended exposure to heat, so it must be added early in the process and allowed to steep for a long while. I measure out the precise amount needed, using a scale so sensitive it can detect the weight of a butterfly's wing, for in elixir making accuracy is paramount. Too much moss in the resulting draught will produce sleep so deep it borders on unconsciousness, a state that is not restful but rather an absence of being. Too little and its effects will be negligible, wasted potential. I tie the moss into a small muslin bag, creating what is essentially a tea sachet, and I suspend this in the liquid using a small silver hook attached to the rim of the beaker. The moss must steep but not sit directly on the bottom, where the heat is most intense. As it steeps, the liquid takes on additional depth, the colour darkening to a rich purple grey, and the scent becomes more complex, gaining earthy undertones that complement the floral notes already present. While these primary ingredients work their slow magic, I turn my attention to preparing the more delicate components. The moon petal flowers must be processed quickly, before their stored luminescence fades completely. I place them in a glass vessel, and add a small amount of pure alcohol distilled from wild grapes that grow in the clearings where moonlight falls most completely. The alcohol extracts the flower's essence almost instantaneously, and the resulting tincture glows with captured moonlight, a liquid that seems to contain within it the very essence of the lunar sphere. The dewdrops from the lady's mantle require a different approach. These must not be heated or mixed with alcohol, for either would destroy their delicate magic. Instead, I add them to a small crystal bowl, and I place this bowl within a larger bowl, filled with ice gathered from the deepest, coldest spring in the forest, a place where winter lingers even in the heat of summer. The cold preserves the dewdrops perfectly, keeping them in a state of suspended animation until they are needed. The dreamstone fragments must be ground to powder, but this too requires special technique. If ground with metal tools, the crystals lose their potency, their magic earthed away through the metal. Instead, I use another piece of dreamstone, a large flat crystal that serves as both mortar and grinding surface. I use small circular motions, working the fragments against the larger crystal, and slowly they break down into a fine powder that sparkles even in the dim candlelight. Each grain a tiny prism splitting light into its component colours. The morning glory vine is processed by steeping in honey, wild honey gathered from bees who collect nectar exclusively from forest flowers, never from cultivated gardens or fields. The honey draws out the vine's essence while also preserving and stabilising it, creating a syrup thick and golden, and infused with the vine's peculiar magic of transitions and thresholds. I check the main elixir, noting how the colour has deepened and the scent has grown more complex. The water has reduced slightly, concentrating the essences of the bark and flowers and moss, and it bubbles gently with a sound like whispered secrets, like the murmuring of a distant conversation in a language almost but not quite comprehensible. The timing of the next steps is crucial. The Codex of Twilight Alchemy specifies that the moon petal tincture must be added precisely when the main elixir reaches a certain temperature, not measured by thermometer but by observation, when the surface shows a specific pattern of convection, currents when the bubbles form and rise in a particular rhythm. I watch the liquid carefully, noting every change, and when the moment is right, I add the glowing moon petal tincture drop by drop, counting each one, for the numbers matter in magic, and certain quantities carry their own significance. 13 drops, the number of lunar months in a year, the number that bridges and binds the celestial and terrestrial. Each drop that falls into the elixir creates a flash of light, a brief spark as the moon essence encounters the warm liquid, and these flashes gradually synchronize, pulsing in rhythm like a slow heartbeat, like the breath of someone deep in the peaceful sleep. The colour of the elixir shifts again, taking on hints of silver and blue, layers of shade and tint that give it a dimensional quality, as if one were looking not at a liquid, but at a window into some other realm, a portal to the land of dreams itself. I remove the bag of 7 sleep moss, squeezing it gently to extract every drop of essence, and I set it aside to be returned to the forest later, for even used ingredients deserve respectful disposal, returned to the earth from which they came. Now comes one of the most delicate operations. The essence of the sleeping bird's dream must be added, but this essence is so subtle, so refined, that it exists almost more as an idea than as a physical substance. The tiny vial holds what appears to be nothing more than golden mist, but this mist contains within it all the qualities of the bird's dream, whatever landscapes it visited, whatever songs it sang in its sleep. I hold the vial over the elixir and remove the cork so carefully that not even the smallest tremor disturbs the contents. The golden mist rises from the vial of its own accord, drawn upward by some subtle attraction, and it hovers for a moment in the air above the beaker before slowly descending, spreading across the surface of the liquid like morning mist settling in a valley. Where the dream essence touches the elixir, the surface ripples with patterns of gold, and for just a moment I can see images in those patterns, fleeting glimpses of the places the bird visited in its dreams. A branch heavy with summer fruit, a clear sky at dawn, the companionship of the flock. These images fade quickly, sinking into the elixir and becoming part of its deep magic, but they leave behind a quality of contentment, of simple joy that will help guide whoever drinks this elixir into dreams equally peaceful and restorative. The star anise seeds are added next, first heated in a dry pan to release their aromatic oils, then steeped briefly in the elixir. They impart a subtle licorice flavour, a hint of sweetness and spice that makes the draught pleasant to drink, but more importantly, they add their essence of cyclical time, helping to align the drinker's sleep with the natural rhythms of the earth and cosmos. The splinters of lightning-struck wood are too potent to add directly. Instead, I create a secondary infusion, steeping the wood in a small amount of the elixir that I've set aside, allowing the wood's transformative properties to concentrate in this smaller volume. When this infusion is ready, showing a faint electrical blue tinge, I add it back to the main elixir drop by careful drop, stirring constantly in a clockwise direction to maintain the flow of energy. The ghost mushrooms require yet another approach. These are dried and ground to powder, then mixed with a small amount of cream skimmed from milk given by a cow who has grazed in the sacred meadow where the stone circle stands, an ancient place of power, where the boundaries between worlds have always been permeable. The mushroom powder binds with the cream's fats, becoming bioavailable, ready to be absorbed and utilised by whoever drinks the elixir. This mushroom cream mixture is added to the elixir near the very end of the brewing process, and it creates a marbling effect, swirls of white through the purple-grey silver liquid, patterns that slowly integrate and disappear as I continue to stir. The preserved dewdrops are the final ingredient, added last because their magic is the most fragile, the most easily disrupted by heat or vigorous stirring. I remove them from their ice bath and add them to the elixir one at a time, watching as each drop creates a tiny explosion of sparkles, a brief firework display in miniature, before settling into the liquid and adding its contribution to the whole. The elixir is nearly complete now, but it must simmer for a while longer, allowing all the ingredients to fully integrate, to move beyond being a mixture and become a true compound, something new that is greater than the sum of its parts. As it simmers, I prepare the final additions. A whisper of vanilla extracted from orchid pods that grew in a greenhouse warmed entirely by captured sunlight. A thread of saffron, the most precious of spices, adding not just its golden colour, but its associations with wealth and luxury, with things rare and beautiful. A single drop of rose oil, distilled from flowers that bloomed in a walled garden where lovers have met for 300 years, flowers that have absorbed the essence of romance and tender feeling. These final touches are added with reverence, with full awareness that I'm not merely combining ingredients, but weaving a spell, creating something that will affect the consciousness of whoever drinks it, that will carry them safely into the realm of dreams and bring them back restored. I monitor the elixir's progress through multiple senses. I observe its colour and consistency, watching for the exact shade and texture described in the codex. I inhale its scent, noting how the various fragrances have blended into a singular perfume that is somehow both complex and unified. I listen to the sound it makes as it bubbles, hearing in that liquid voice when the brewing process has reached its conclusion. And I feel it, not with my hands but with a deeper sense, an intuitive awareness that develops only after years of practice, a knowing that comes from somewhere beyond rational thought. When all these signals align, when sight and scent and sound and intuition all confirm that the moment has arrived, I remove the elixir from the cold fire. The elixir must cool slowly, naturally, without any forced chilling that might shock its delicate balance. I set the beaker on a marble slab that has been blessed and consecrated for this purpose, and I cover it with a cloth woven from the finest linen, a cloth embroidered with symbols of protection and completion. As it cools, the elixir undergoes its final transformation. The colour deepens and clarifies simultaneously, becoming more transparent yet more intensely hued, a paradox that is characteristic of truly successful magical preparations. The liquid takes on a quality of luminescence, glowing softly from within even though there is no light source that could account for this glow. This is the sign I have been hoping for, the indication that the elixir has achieved that perfect balance where all ingredients work in harmony, where the whole transcends its parts, where mere mixture has become true magic. While the elixir cools, I prepare the bottles that will contain it. These are not ordinary bottles, but special vessels I have been saving for an occasion worthy of them. They are made of crystal, hand-blown by an artisan who learned the craft from her grandmother, who learned it from her grandmother, in a lineage stretching back through generations, to a time when glassmaking itself was considered a form of magic, a way of transforming sand and fire into transparent beauty. Each bottle is unique, shaped by breath and skill into forms that are both functional and beautiful. Some are tall and slender, while others are round and squat. Some have long necks and wide bodies, while others reverse this proportion. But all share certain characteristics. Their glass is perfectly clear, without bubbles or imperfections that might distort or diminish the elixir they will hold. Their stoppers are ground to fit precisely, creating an airtight seal that will preserve the contents indefinitely. Before I can use these bottles, they must be cleansed and prepared. I fill a basin with water from the moon stream, adding to it a handful of salt gathered from the distant sea, salt that carries within it the memory of tides and the moon's gravitational pull. I immerse each bottle completely in this salt water, speaking words of cleansing and purification, asking that any residual energies be washed away, that the vessels be returned to a state of pristine neutrality. After the cleansing, I rinse each bottle with pure spring water and dry them with cloths that have never been used for any other purpose. Then I pass each one through the smoke of burning cedar, a wood known for its protective and clarifying properties, further purifying and preparing the vessels for their sacred task. The bottles gleam in the candlelight, catching and reflecting the golden flames, themselves seeming to glow with anticipation. I arrange them in a row on the workbench, and I place beside them a funnel made of silver, for silver is the moon's metal, and will not react with or contaminate the elixir as it passes through. By now, the elixir has cooled to the perfect temperature, still slightly warm but no longer hot, ready for the final stage of its journey from cauldron to container. I remove the linen cloth and look at what I have created. The liquid seems to shift and shimmer, colours moving through it like auroras in a northern sky, purples and silvers and golds and blues, all flowing and blending in patterns that never quite repeat. I lift the beaker carefully, supporting its base with one hand while steadying its rim with the other, and I pour the elixir into the first bottle. The liquid flows in a steady stream, catching the light as it falls, and the sound it makes as it fills the bottle is like the tinkling of small bells, like laughter heard from a distance, like rain on leaves. The first bottle fills, and I set it aside, placing the stopper loosely in the opening for now. I move to the second bottle and repeat the process, pouring with the same care and attention, watching the level rise with satisfaction. Each bottle receives its measure of the elixir, and with each pouring, I feel a sense of completion, of purpose fulfilled. The elixir seems to know that it is being divided, being sent out into the world to accomplish its purpose, and it goes willingly, flowing smoothly and evenly, leaving no residue in the beaker, giving itself completely to this new phase of its existence. When all the bottles are filled, I examine each one carefully, holding it up to the light, checking for any imperfection or irregularity. The elixir in each bottle is identical in colour and consistency, yet somehow each bottle seems to have its own character, its own personality. This one seems more silver in its tones, while that one leans toward purple. Another has a golden cast, while its neighbour shimmers with blue. These differences are subtle, perhaps more perceived than real, but they remind me that magic is not a standardized industrial process, but rather something organic and individual, something that adapts itself to context and need. Satisfied that all is as it should be, I press the stoppers firmly into place, sealing each bottle completely. The stoppers are made of cork harvested from trees that grow in distant southern lands, trees whose thick bark protects them from wildfire and drought. This cork has been boiled in honey water and dried in sunlight, processes that purify it and enhance its sealing properties. As I seal each bottle, I speak a word of completion over it, a phrase in the old language that means something like sealed and safe, perfect and complete, ready for its purpose. These words are not strictly necessary, for the elixir is already finished, but they serve as acknowledgement, as blessing, as final affirmation that the work is done and done well. Now comes the labelling, a task that is more than mere record-keeping or identification. The labels I will attach to these bottles are themselves part of the magic, for they contain information written in a script that is both beautiful and functional, letters formed according to principles that enhance and preserve the elixir's properties. I have prepared parchment for this purpose, genuine parchment made from sheepskin that has been scraped and stretched and treated until it is thin and smooth as silk. I cut this parchment into rectangles of equal size, measuring each one carefully, for symmetry and proportion matter in all aspects of this work. The ink I will use is special, created specifically for magical purposes. Its base is iron gall ink, made from oak galls and iron sulfate, a formula that has been used for centuries because of its permanence and resistance to fading. But to this traditional recipe, I have added other ingredients, a drop of the elixir itself, creating a sympathetic connection between the label and the contents, a pinch of gold powder, adding associations of value and preservation, a whisper of crushed lavender, bringing qualities of clarity and calm. The quill I take up is not goose or duck, but raven, for the raven is a bird associated with magic and mystery, with the ability to move between worlds and carry messages between the realms. This particular quill was given to me by the raven herself, shed naturally and found beneath her roosting tree, a gift freely offered and gratefully accepted. I dip the quill in the ink and begin to write on the first label. The script I use is ancient, each letter formed according to precise rules that govern not just its shape, but the direction and order of the strokes used to create it. These letters are more than mere symbols representing sounds. They are sigils, each one carrying its own power and meaning, and when combined properly, they do more than spell words. They create patterns of force that reinforce and protect the elixir's magic. I write first the name of the elixir, Draught of Peaceful Dreams, but I write it in the old tongue, where the words carry layers of meaning impossible to capture in translation. The word for peaceful implies not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of deep harmony, a state of being that is aligned with the fundamental nature of reality. The word for dreams encompasses not just the visions that come in sleep, but all the hopes and aspirations that drive us forward, all the possibilities that exist in potential waiting to be made manifest. Below the name I write the date of brewing, but not according to the common calendar. Instead I note the phase of the moon, which was waxing gibbous, 3 days past first quarter, a time when lunar energy is building toward fullness, a propitious moment for creating, things meant to grow and develop. I note the position of the stars, which constellations were rising and setting at the moment of completion, for these celestial patterns influence the elixir's properties in subtle but real ways. I list the primary ingredients, not in the dry language of inventory, but in poetic phrases that honour each component and acknowledge its contribution. Silver birch bark for purification and new beginnings, night's breath for quieting the restless mind, 7 sleep, moss for deep and restorative rest, moon petal essence for dreams touched with lunar magic, and so on through the list, each ingredient receiving its due recognition. At the bottom of the label, I draw a symbol that serves as my maker's mark, a unique glyph that identifies this elixir as my work, my responsibility. This symbol is not just a signature, but a seal, a guarantee that the elixir has been made properly, with skill and care and respect for the ancient traditions of the craft. The ink dries quickly, and I attach the label to the first bottle using an adhesive made from tree resin and beeswax, a natural glue that will hold firmly but can be removed if necessary without damaging either the label or the bottle. I repeat this process for each bottle, writing each label by hand even though they all contain essentially the same information. This is a matter of principle, of honouring the individual nature of each bottle, of acknowledging that even though they contain the same elixir, each will find its way to a different person, will be used in a different context, will serve a unique purpose in the great web of cause and effect that connects all things. The writing is meditative work, requiring focus and precision, but also allowing the mind to settle into a calm, centered state. The scratch of the quill on parchment becomes a kind of rhythm, and the formation of each letter a small ceremony, a micro-ritual repeated again and again until all the labels are complete. When the last label is attached to the last bottle, I step back and survey my work. The bottles stand in a row, glowing softly in the candlelight, each one a small miracle, a concentrated expression of the forest bounty and the elixir maker's art. They are beautiful, these bottles. Beautiful not just in their appearance, but in what they represent, in the care and knowledge and intention that went into their creation. I take a moment to appreciate them fully, to feel the satisfaction that comes from work well done, from having taken raw materials and transformed them into something greater, something that will bring benefit and blessing to those who use them. But the work is not quite finished. These elixirs must be stored properly until they are needed, kept in conditions that will preserve their potency and protect their magic. I have a special cabinet for this purpose, built from rowan wood and lined with silk, placed in the coolest, darkest corner of the brewing station, where temperature remains constant and light never penetrates. I open the cabinet, and inside I see the other elixirs I have created over the months and years. Bottles of every size and colour containing draughts and potions and tinctures for every conceivable purpose. Healing elixirs that can mend wounds and cure sickness. Love potions that open the heart to possibility and connection. Courage draughts that banish fear and strengthen resolve. Memory enhancers that sharpen the mind and improve recall. Protection potions that create shields against negative energy and harmful intention. Each bottle represents hours of work, careful gathering of ingredients, precise brewing, mindful bottling. Each one is a story in liquid form, a solution to some problem, an answer to some need. They wait patiently on their shelves, ready to be called into service, content to exist in potential until the moment comes for them to fulfill their purpose. I place the new bottles of Draught of Peaceful Dreams on their designated shelf, arranging them so they stand upright and stable, spaced evenly so they do not touch each other or the walls of the cabinet. When they are all in place, I step back and close the cabinet door, securing it with a small lock that prevents anyone from accessing the contents without proper authorization. The elixirs are safe now, protected and preserved, their magic held in suspension until it is needed. And when someone comes seeking help for sleeplessness, for troubled dreams, for restless nights that leave them exhausted and depleted, I will be able to offer them this draught, this carefully crafted solution that combines the forest's wisdom with the alchemist's skill. But what makes these elixirs truly magical is not just the ingredients or the brewing process, as important as those elements are. The real magic comes from intention, from the clear and focused purpose that guides every step of the work, from the gathering of ingredients to the final sealing of the bottles. When I gathered the silver birch bark, I did so with the intention that it would serve the purpose of purification, that it would help clear away the day's accumulated tensions and worries. This intention informed how I approached the tree, how I asked permission, how I cut and collected the bark. The tree responded to this intention, offering its gift more freely, because the purpose was clear and worthy. When I processed the night's breath flowers, I worked with the intention that they would quiet the chattering mind, that they would bring stillness and peace to whoever drank the final elixir. This intention guided my movements, influenced the rhythm of my grinding, and became imprinted in the flower's essence as surely as any physical property. Every ingredient was gathered and prepared with this kind of clear intention, and every step of the brewing process was performed with full awareness of the desired outcome. This is what transforms a simple mixture of plants and water into something truly powerful, truly transformative. The elixir becomes a carrier not just of physical compounds, but of purposeful energy, of directed will, of focused consciousness. This principle applies to all forms of creation, magical or mundane. A meal cooked with love and attention nourishes not just the body, but the soul. A garden tended with patience and care produces not just vegetables, but beauty and peace. A letter written with genuine feeling conveys not just information, but connection and warmth. The elixir maker understands this truth and applies it consciously, deliberately, making intention as important an ingredient as any herb or root or flower. We work not just with our hands, but with our hearts and minds, bringing all aspects of ourselves to the task, holding the desired outcome clearly in awareness while simultaneously remaining open to what the process wants to teach us, what unexpected insights might emerge from the work itself. This is why elixir making cannot be truly industrialized, cannot be reduced to a formula that anyone can follow mechanically and achieve the same results. The ingredients matter, yes. The technique matters certainly. But the consciousness of the maker, the quality of attention and intention brought to the work, matters just as much, perhaps even more. Two people could gather identical ingredients, follow the same recipe precisely, use the same equipment and methods, and yet produce elixirs of notably different quality and effectiveness. One might create something merely adequate, while the other produces something genuinely magical. The difference lies not in what they do, but in how they do it, in the awareness and intention they bring to each moment of the process. This is why the training of an elixir maker takes years, often decades. It is not enough to memorize recipes and learn techniques. One must develop the capacity for sustained attention, for clear intention, for deep presence in each moment. One must learn to work in partnership with the materials rather than simply manipulating them, to listen to what the plants and minerals want to teach, to sense when something is right or when it needs adjustment. The best elixir makers are those who have cultivated a quality of awareness that allows them to perceive subtle energies, to feel the shifts and changes that occur during the brewing process, to know intuitively when to add an ingredient or when to wait, when to stir and when to let things settle. This kind of awareness cannot be taught through instruction alone. It must be developed through practice, through years of patient work, through countless experiments and failures and successes, through gradually deepening relationship with the materials and methods of the craft. And perhaps most importantly, it must be grounded in respect. Respect for the plants and their gifts. Respect for the knowledge passed down through generations. Respect for the people who will ultimately use these elixirs, trusting the maker to have created something safe and beneficial and effective. This respect informs every action, every decision, every moment of the work. It is what keeps the elixir maker humble, always learning, always seeking to improve, never assuming that mastery has been achieved or that there is nothing more to discover. The elixirs are made, bottled, labelled and stored. But the cycle is not yet complete, for there is still the matter of the used ingredients, the materials that gave their essence to the elixirs, and now must be returned to the earth. I gather these remnants with the same care I used when collecting them fresh. The squeezed moss, the spent flowers, the infused bark, all the solid materials that were extracted and used. I place them in a basket specifically designated for this purpose, and I carry them back out into the forest. The moon has moved across the sky during the hours of brewing and bottling, and dawn is not far off. The forest is in that deep quiet that comes in the hour before sunrise, a stillness that feels pregnant with possibility, as if the world itself is holding its breath waiting for the light. I walk to a place I have used many times before for this purpose, a small clearing where the soil is particularly rich, fed by centuries of fallen leaves and decaying wood. Here, I have dug a shallow pit, and into this pit I place the spent ingredients, arranging them carefully, thanking each one again for its service. I cover them with earth, patting it down gently, and I speak words of gratitude and blessing, acknowledging the cycle of growth and decay and renewal that governs all natural things. These materials will decompose, returning their nutrients to the soil, and from that soil will grow new plants, new ingredients for future elixirs. The cycle continues, endless and eternal, death feeding life feeding death in the great dance that has no beginning and no ending. This act of return is essential, a way of maintaining balance, of ensuring that the relationship between human and nature remains reciprocal rather than purely extractive. We take from the forest, but we also give back. We use what is offered, but we also honour and replenish. This is the old way, the sustainable way, the way that allows both humans and the natural world to flourish together. As I walk back to the brewing station, the first birds are beginning their morning songs, those early risers who greet the dawn with such enthusiasm and joy. Their songs fill the forest with sound, a celebration of the new day, of survival through another night, of the simple fact of being alive in this moment. I pause to listen, allowing their music to wash over me, feeling my own spirit lift in response to their unself-conscious exuberance. This too is part of the elixir maker's life, this attention to beauty, this openness to wonder, this willingness to be moved and inspired by the ordinary miracles that surround us always, if only we have eyes to see and ears to hear. Back in the brewing station, I extinguish the candles, thanking the fire for its service, for the light and warmth it provided during the long hours of work. I tidy the workspace, cleaning and putting away tools, wiping down surfaces, restoring order so that everything will be ready when the next brewing begins. This cleanup is not mere housekeeping, but another ritual, another way of honouring the work and the space in which it occurs. A clean, organised workspace is a respectful workspace, and it also serves practical purposes, preventing contamination and ensuring that tools remain in good condition, ready for immediate use. When everything is clean and orderly, when every tool is in its proper place and every surface gleams, I allow myself to rest. I make a cup of tea from herbs I keep for personal use. Not magical brews, but simple infusions meant only for comfort and refreshment. I sit in a comfortable chair by the window and watch as the sun rises, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold and orange. This is the time for reflection, for considering what has been accomplished, for noting what went well and what might be improved next time. I review the brewing process in my mind step by step, paying attention to moments of difficulty or uncertainty, thinking about how I might refine my technique or adjust proportions for even better results. But mostly, I simply sit and rest, allowing the satisfaction of work well done to fill me, feeling the pleasant exhaustion that comes after hours of focused effort. My body is tired, but it is a good tiredness, the kind that comes from purposeful activity, from using one's skills and knowledge in service of something meaningful. The tea is hot and fragrant, and I sip it slowly, savouring the simple pleasure of warm liquid, the subtle flavours of mint and chamomile and lemon balm. These are healing plants too, in their own gentle way, not as dramatic or powerful as the ingredients in the draft of Peaceful Dreams, but effective nonetheless in their modest fashion. As I sit and sip and watch the sunrise, I think about the people who will eventually use these elixirs, the individual struggling with sleeplessness, tossing and turning through long nights, waking exhausted and unrefreshed. I imagine them taking a small dose of the draught, just a spoonful before bed, and I imagine the elixir working its magic, gently guiding them into deep, peaceful sleep filled with pleasant dreams. I imagine them waking the next morning feeling truly rested for the first time in weeks or months or even years, feeling the difference that good sleep makes, how it allows the body to heal and the mind to process and integrate the experiences of the day, how it restores energy and enthusiasm and hope. This is why I do this work, why I spend hours gathering ingredients and brewing elixirs, why I devote myself to mastering this ancient craft, because it makes a difference, because it helps people, because in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, I can offer something that brings comfort and relief and healing. Not all problems can be solved with an elixir, of course. Magic has its limits, and there are forms of suffering that require different kinds of intervention. But for those issues that fall within the elixir maker's domain, for the physical and emotional ailments that respond to carefully crafted potions, I can provide genuine help, real relief. And that is no small thing. To ease suffering, to bring comfort, to help someone sleep peacefully or heal from injury or find courage in the face of fear. These are worthy purposes, meaningful contributions to the well-being of others and to the health of the community as a whole. The sun has fully risen now, the forest bathed in morning light that filters through the canopy in golden shafts. The day is beginning, and with it comes the return to the ordinary world, to mundane concerns and practical matters. But for these few hours, in the deep night and early morning, I have inhabited a different realm, the threshold space where magic is real and wonder is commonplace, where the boundaries between possible and impossible blur and dissolve, where intention and attention can shape reality itself. This is the gift of the elixir maker's craft, this ability to work between worlds, to gather the bounty of the natural world and transform it into something that bridges matter and spirit, body and consciousness, the seen and the unseen. And now, with the elixirs safely stored and ready for use, with the workspace clean and orderly, with my own spirit nourished by the satisfaction of work well done, I can rest, knowing that when someone comes seeking help, I will have something to offer, something precious and powerful and made with care. As I finish my tea and prepare to leave the brewing station for my own bed and well-earned rest, I take one last look around this space that has been my companion through so many nights of work. The shelves lined with bottles, each one containing its own form of magic. The workbench scarred with the marks of countless preparations. The codex of twilight alchemy resting on its stand, ready to share its accumulated wisdom whenever it is needed. This place is more than a workshop. It is a sanctuary, a temple to the ancient arts, a space set apart from the ordinary world where extraordinary things can happen. It is a place where time moves differently, where the concerns of daily life cannot intrude, where focus and concentration and deep presence are not just possible, but natural and easy. Every elixir maker needs such a space, a dedicated environment where the work can unfold without interruption or distraction. The specific details matter less than the intention behind the creation of the space, the commitment to maintaining it as a clean, organised, peaceful environment where magic can flourish. Some elixir makers work in elaborate laboratories filled with expensive equipment and rare ingredients. Others make do with much simpler setups, perhaps just a corner of a kitchen and a few basic tools. What matters is not the scale or sophistication of the workspace, but the care and respect with which it is maintained, the clear purpose it serves, the quality of attention brought to the work performed within it. My own brewing station falls somewhere in the middle of this spectrum, not lavish but well equipped, not primitive but not overly complex. It suits my needs and my way of working, and over the years it has become an extension of myself, a physical expression of my commitment to this craft. I blow out the last candle, watching the thin trail of smoke rise and dissipate in the morning air. I shoulder my basket, now empty except for the few tools I brought with me. I step out into the forest, pulling the door closed behind me, and I begin the walk back to my cottage at the edge of the woods. The forest is fully awake now, alive with the sounds and activities of daytime creatures. Squirrels chase each other through the branches overhead. Birds flit from tree to tree, searching for insects and seeds. Somewhere in the distance, a woodpecker drums against a hollow trunk, the rapid-fire percussion echoing through the trees. I walk slowly, in no particular hurry, enjoying the morning, feeling myself part of the forest's life, connected to everything around me through invisible threads of relationship and reciprocity. I am the forest child as much as any bird or fox or tree, born of the same earth, sustained by the same sun and rain, subject to the same cycles of growth and decay. This awareness of connection, of belonging, is perhaps the greatest gift the elixir maker's path has given me. Not just the knowledge of plants and their properties, not just the skills of brewing and bottling, but this deep sense of being woven into the fabric of the natural world, of having a place and purpose within the great web of life. In a world that often feels fragmented and isolating, where people are disconnected from nature and from each other, where the pace of life leaves little room for reflection or wonder, this connection is precious beyond measure. It grounds me, centers me, reminds me of what truly matters beneath the surface churn of events and concerns. I reach my cottage as the sun climbs higher in the sky. It is a small, simple dwelling, built of stone and timber with a thatched roof and windows that look out onto the forest. Inside it is cosy and welcoming, filled with books and herbs and the comfortable clutter of a life fully lived. I prepare for sleep, even though the world around me is waking. This is one of the oddities of the elixir maker's life, keeping hours that often differ from those of ordinary folk, working when others sleep, sleeping when others work. But I have grown accustomed to this rhythm, and in truth I prefer it. There is something special about the night, a quality of quiet and solitude that suits the work perfectly. I climb into bed, and as I settle into the familiar comfort of mattress and pillow and soft blankets, I think one last time about the elixirs now resting in their bottles, waiting to fulfill their purpose. I hope they will serve their users well, that they will bring peaceful sleep and pleasant dreams, that they will make some small difference in the lives of those who need them. And with that thought, I surrender to sleep myself, trusting in the same natural processes that I have tried to enhance and channel through my elixirs. Sleep comes quickly, deep and dreamless at first, then gradually filling with images and sensations, the mind processing and integrating the experiences of the long night just past. I dream of the forest, of course, of walking through moonlit glades and gathering magical ingredients, of birds singing in languages I almost understand, of trees that whisper secrets and streams that laugh with joy, of elixirs that glow with captured light and bottles that contain entire worlds. These are good dreams, healing dreams, dreams that restore and replenish. And when I wake hours later, I will feel refreshed and renewed, ready to face whatever the coming night might bring, ready to begin the cycle again, gathering and brewing and bottling, endlessly repeating the ancient patterns of the elixir maker's art. For this is my calling, my purpose, my contribution to the world, to take the forest's gifts and transform them into healing and comfort and wonder, to maintain the old knowledge and pass it on to those who come after, to stand as a bridge between the natural and human worlds, honouring both, serving both, finding ways for them to work in harmony rather than conflict. It is not an easy path, this way of the elixir maker. It demands dedication and discipline, patience and practice, a willingness to study and learn for a lifetime without ever reaching a final destination. For there is always more to discover, always deeper levels of understanding to achieve. But it is a rewarding path, rich with meaning and purpose, filled with moments of beauty and wonder and the deep satisfaction that comes from work that truly matters. And I would not trade it for any other life, would not choose any other way of being in the world. The whispering woods will stand long after I'm gone, continuing their eternal dance of growth and decay, light and shadow, the seen and the unseen. But for now, in this moment, in this particular configuration of time and space, I'm here, doing this work, making these elixirs, honouring these ancient traditions, and that is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the Whispering Woods, for sharing these quiet hours of gathering and brewing and bottling. I hope this experience has brought you some measure of peace and tranquility, that the sounds and images and sensations have helped you relax and let go of whatever tensions you carried with you. If you enjoyed this journey, I would be so grateful if you would take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the Sleepy Sorcerer Stories channel. Your support helps me continue creating these immersive experiences, these escapes into magical realms where wonder and peace can be found. Hit that notification bell so you'll know whenever a new story is released, whenever another doorway opens into enchanted lands. Share your favourite moments from this video in the comments below. Tell me what other magical crafts you'd like to explore in future videos. Your feedback and suggestions help shape the journeys we take together. Until next time, dear wanderers, may your dreams be peaceful, your sleep be deep, and may you carry a touch of the Whispering Woods' magic with you into your waking life. Sleep well, and remember that wonder is always waiting just beyond the edge of the ordinary, in forests that whisper your name and elixirs that glow with captured moonlight. Sweet dreams and blessed rest.